Don Pasquale, a story of love and deception spanning two equally determined generations. It's a thrilling and sparkling comedy about an uncle resolutely committed to stopping his nephew from marrying and going to extraordinary lengths to do so. It was written in just under 2 weeks, and it was the 64th opera composed by the superstar composer Donizetti, and it was an immediate success. Composed for the four most celebrated singers of the day at the Théâtre Italien in Paris, it marks the last of the golden tradition of opera buffa, comic opera. It delighted audiences in the 19th century, and it, of course, continues to do so today. Good evening, my name is Amy Lane, and I am the head staff director here at the Royal Opera. Thank you for watching tonight's Insight with us, and we are supported by Rolex. Now, this season led by our very own star cast of star performers, we're so proud to be presenting a new production directed by Damiano Michieletto, which can be seen on our main stage from October the 14th, and you can also catch it in cinemas around the world on October the 24th. Now, we'll be speaking to Damiano a little later, but first of all, let's meet our very own Fab Four, who will be bringing these characters to life on stage with us. Please welcome Sir Bryn Terfel, Olga Peretyatko, Marcus Verba, and Johan Ortea. Well, good evening. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us tonight. So let's go straight in. Could you introduce which characters you are playing and tell us a tiny little bit about the characters that you are playing? Why don't we go with Olga first of all?
Oh, thank you very much. I'm Norina. It's, only one lady in this story, and she's a very young and smart, and she's a good one. Though sometimes she seems to be antipathical, but she's not.
Okay, noted. We'll come back to that. Very good. Bryn?
I played Don Pasquale, who is, of course, a bachelor, but very seriously, he's now contending for the heart of a younger lady.
That's a bold choice.
A bold choice.
We like it,
and
we
as you
like
said, two generations, very interesting things are about to happen on the stage, especially when there's a very cheeky Dr. Malatesta in your life as well.
Yes. Well, who would that be then? Come on.
Yeah, hi, that's me, yeah. Dr. Malatesta is, I think, somehow, like we did with Damiano, the mastermind of this piece, and he's just like organizing the story.
Right.
I think in this version he's in love with her. He doesn't like so much Don Pasquale because he's a very greedy guy, he doesn't want to spend money and so on. And he's fast, smart, and good in filmmaking.
Okay, so let's keep an eye on what's going on there.
Real evil.
So that leaves, who do we have?
Yeah, I'm Ernesto. I'm the Don Pasquale nephew. And yeah, many aspects I am hypersensitive. I'm a victim, always a victim. But I have a very good heart, and I'm romantic, and I sing the most beautiful parts of the...
So a victim with a good heart.
That's true.
So, Bryn, you are debuting this role of Don Pasquale. What drew you to want to look at this character now? What's the fascination with
It's frightening, isn't it? Well, I'm collecting roles now that I can use maybe for the next decade of my career.
Fantastic. It's a good collection.
Don Pasquale seems to be an opera that they are performing quite regularly in places like Paris. This production has come from Paris. They do it in Vienna, of course. So I'm looking to hopefully maybe singing in those opera houses in the next 10 years. And Don Pasquale is a brilliant story, of course. It's a little bit close to the bone, Amy, at the moment, because I just got married to a beautiful young lady that's younger than me.
I think that's okay.
But I don't have a Malatesta in my life, so everything went perfect.
Excellent. Quite right, too. So how does this character compare to... Recently, we've seen you on stage as Dulcamara in L'Elysée d'Amore, also a Donizetti role, Baron Scarpia, and, of course, Boris Godunov.
Yes.
I mean, this is quite a different kind of fellow here.
Yes. Well, and yet they all fit into one glove, predominantly bass baritone roles. Maybe Scarpia, maybe a little higher, but I think they fit nicely together. And I just did Boris Godunov and Scarpia, the Royal Operas. Feel very, very happy that I have, and to be a part of such a wonderful opera house, the best in the world, you have to say. But yes, it's interesting to come back to Donizetti, as you've said. Elisir d'Amor has been in my repertoire, but Don Pasquale is a totally different animal.
And have you
to come
enjoyed
back
making it?
into these wonderful notes. I had a brilliant honeymoon, let me say, and a couple of weeks in Spain in the sun. And I came home to a score that was lying on my agent's table. And this was a new critical edition of Don Pasquale. So whatever I learned in Spain and before that, I had then had for the next 2 weeks to maybe rejuggle some notes, some words, which for the first week of rehearsals was driving me absolutely crazy.
And where have we landed now?
Now I'm in between the two scores.
Excellent.
Still making
Yes,
a
our very
mistake
own
here
version.
and there, but hopefully now in the next 2 weeks I'll be
It'll
getting
iron
into
out.
that new critical edition.
It will be our very own at the very least.
Yeah.
You are not
Olga.
alone. Eh?
Oh, well, interesting. So, Olga, this is you're also debuting this
Yes.
role, and also your debut at Covent Garden.
It's a double debut.
A
so I'm
double
very
debut.
excited.
So that's rather exciting for us. You're welcome. So how are you enjoying discovering the role of Norina?
You know, somehow it's strange because everybody asks me, yeah, it's not your debut. I say, yes, it's my debut. So, you know, somehow a couple of really important roles when I never sang it. For example, Norina or Juliet in Romeo and Juliet. Everybody asks me, yeah, when is your next Juliet? I said, I've never sung it before. Or the same with Norina. And it's, you know, I've sung a lot of Donizetti, so somehow it helps. But this story, this opera is such a genius. Yeah, there is no weak place in this opera. Really, it's the pearl of Donizetti. I think.
It is remarkably
strange.
crafted.
It's very psychological. It's stylistically, it's bel canto, but it's. You know, the orchestra of Donizetti is different, yeah? It's not like Bellini, but it's almost Verdi. It's like a bridge to Verdi. And for me and for us, it's quite heavy orchestra. It's not your problem. So you can sing from
relax.
your dressing room, I think. You will be heard. And
I think everybody
me.
will be beautifully heard. But
Stop,
you
yeah.
are enjoying discovering her, and what a
Absolutely.
wonderful team to be creating with
it's
as well.
an amazing team, and I'm happy to be here and with you guys, and yeah, to discover this psychological. It's encyclopedia of psychological characters.
Thank you very much. And Johan, you made your debut in 2017 as Nemorino.
Yes.
Also L'Elisir d'Amore, so another of Donizetti's classics. We have a bit of a theme going on for you here. How are you enjoying being back? And another little question as well, you've played Ernesto in several other productions as well.
Yes.
How do you keep coming back to a role and discovering new thoughts, and how do you enjoy coming back to a character?
Yeah, it is something very, very different every time, I can say. Yeah, maybe for most of the people think that, yeah, I did already 5 productions in 5 different theaters, in 5 different style of the stagings, and of course different conductors. And yeah, every time when I'm turned back to Ernesto, I find something different and something new, something. And then gives me more opportunities or words or cadenza. And with Maestro, I'm very happy to have new cadenza. And we have addition, like, yeah, we spoke, yeah, critical edition. Then we have many different notes and different words. We have to change. It's like new, completely new for me.
Rediscovery every time.
Yeah.
That feels great.
And yeah.
Thank you. And Marcus, you have performed here in La Callisto, La Bohème, Ariadne, Die Zauberflöte, and I think you sing works of a vast range of composers, Mozart, Wagner, Debussy, Verdi, Tchaikovsky. Coming back to the bel canto singing, how do you enjoy coming to the role and working with the bel canto?
It's a very healthy thing to come back to Mozart and to bel canto, to Bellini, Donizetti, which is like perfect for the voice. Now in my stage of career, it's very interesting because, in fact, I'm doing French repertoire, Peleas, I'm doing Onegin in Russian, I'm doing Tannhäuser in German, and it's just like the whole mixture. It's crazy at the moment. But then again, as being here now, also rediscovering, also actually with Evelino, Don Pasquale, it's just. And it's so good for the voice. It's just like so, it opens up your body, you know, and you know where you are, actually. And it was more difficult with the Tote Stadt, which I did in La Scala, or with Ariadne of Naxos, which I did Musiklehrer now. It's more complicated, so it depends also on the languages. But I mean, it's just like, yeah, Bellini, Donizetti, and you go towards Verdi also, it's perfection for the voice.
So it works so beautifully for all four of you, very clearly.
Yeah.
Now, of course, this is a comedy. So how does it work in the rehearsal room when you're creating comedy? Do you have to be highly choreographed? Is it very, very precise? Or is there room for improvisation and a lot of play? Bryn, tell us about this.
Well, personally, I messaged a couple of colleagues that have sung Don Pasquale, wanting certain tips on how to play the role. And they all said to keep it very personal, not to try too much with the comedy. There's certain gags that you can play, but keep it as serious as possible. And I think that's less is more.
Absolutely, committing to the character and believing in everything you do can often lead to the most glorious forms of comedy.
I'm fighting at the moment. It's a very busy production, isn't it, guys?
Oh, yes.
It's non-stop. Pasquale's house and home is absolutely crazy. Of course, it needs a little bit of
It
tender,
have to be a disaster anyway.
loving care.
So
You know,
it's a little
his
ramshackle.
furniture is a bit drab, and he should spend some money on the house, maybe.
Okay, a little doer-upper.
I will
So,
take care about it.
So working with, of course, that's the rehearsal process, isn't it? Trying to get everything around your head and
working around
telling the
space.
story.
Fantastic. And how do you feel with working with the comedy? Do you have to be very well behaved and learn very particular moves? Or do you have that freedom to play amongst you in the rehearsal room? Marcus?
Well, I think it's a mixture, because we spoke also to Damiano that we can also like show what we think in this moment, and we just think about, we go to a table, we talk about it, and we can have some, even if he likes the ideas, then he takes the ideas. If he doesn't like them, of course he doesn't take them.
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean, there's so many moments, you know, it's so tricky, especially the finale in the second act. There's so much is going on. So we really need traffic. We have some, you know, we have to organize the traffic and which is going on, because I tell you, there's a lot going on.
It's very
Now-
cinematographic, you know. It's because I'm happy to. It will be in cinemas, and because everything what Damiano does, it's very cinematographic. We work together, and I know his style and a lot of details, of course. But he, you know, he takes it personally, because from the Paris cast, it comes from Paris,
Absolutely.
and it was different people, different persons, and he knows it, and he works as it would be the new production. So we changed a lot, actually. We changed a lot.
So it has its own new life for Covent
Yeah,
Garden.
absolutely. And it's a different final of the story, actually.
A different finale?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, okay,
exactly.
interesting.
So it's I love it what we did.
Yeah, which we won't tell you now.
No spoilers on the finale
No,
just
no.
yet. Now, what I can sense very clearly between the four of you, I mean, it has kind of four key roles in this opera, and there's very clearly a sense of fun and family in this cast going on here. How does that feed into the rehearsal process?
Oh, it's super important to be the team, you know.
The trust and the team.
Yeah, to be the team.
Johan, have you enjoyed working with this
of
group?
course. And
With him, it's very easy, because he's like, feel like very good friends now, and he feels so good that he speaks Romanian with me, and I have no words what he's
well, sometimes
idea what he's
because
saying.
Italian for me, it's like Romanian, and sometimes I have the feeling that I speak Italian with him, and I speak actually Romanian.
And I say, yeah, okay, let's do that.
Now
And
in
he's
English.
looking at me like this.
So you're finding your own languages and skills through this. Now, look, I have a question for you. We have the moral of the story at the end of the piece. What do you think the moral is? What is this piece about?
Well, obviously, he's taught a lesson,
He's taught a good old lesson, but
and I think that's something that one should heed. Of course, there's the story of love in it as well. So, and as in Falstaff, for instance, I think the importance of that piece are the lovers, the youngsters.
absolutely.
And so for me, it's just to be here with these youngsters. I think that's the moral of the story.
To enjoy each other and to have
Yes.
a great time as we go
Yeah.
through.
Good one.
So, if you were to summarise this production, what is being presented with this piece and how it makes you feel to perform it, in one word or a tagline each, how would you summarise this production of Don Pasquale? Marcus?
Updated.
Updated for today. Bryn?
One word.
Or you can have a sentence.
At the moment, yeah, it's a chaos in my mind.
An updated, brilliant chaos.
So, chaos at the moment. So, but give me another couple of days.
So chaos with a cause.
I came into the rehearsal period with a really happy heart, and after the wedding and the honeymoon and everything, I was really looking forward to work, and I want to carry that on. I'm enjoying the rehearsals and enjoying working with everybody in that room. And we're also concentrated and trying to achieve as much as we can. And that's opera, isn't it? To have fun whilst achieving something between each other.
That's all the best things combining, isn't it, to make the great art that we get to make, and with great friends.
So chaos would be my first word. But then I'm hoping it'll turn into something like ecstatic.
Ecstatic chaos is what we could be going for. Olga?
I would call it joyful challenge.
A joyful challenge.
For me, probably freedom. I feel like I'm very free to express myself, actually. I'm not I feel any pushed in one way to imagine my character. And this is because of Damiano. He has always give us a possibility to imagine in ourselves. And I'm happy. I'm feeling very happy with this. I did many versions, like I told you before. And this one, actually, I don't have to be like an artist or painting stuff. I can be just me.
Well, that sounds like a perfect combination of all four of you, what you're bringing to this piece. It has been joyful to talk to you all tonight. Let's wish you all the very best for your opening night, the run of performances, and I'm so grateful that you all joined us to talk to us tonight. Thank you so much. Laura, lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you as well, thank you.
Thank you. So will you tell us, where does Don Pasquale fit in Donizetti's highly impressive catalogue of operas?
Yeah, I mean, this is a man who wrote an awful lot of operas. He wrote about 70 in total, as you said already. This is his 64th. So he's a man who knows how to put an opera together by this point.
Clearly.
He's had an awful lot of experience. He really hits the big time in 1830 with an opera called Anna Bolena, which is quite a serious opera, actually. He then hits the big time again a couple of years later with L'Elisée d'Amore, which our cast have already spoken about this evening, which was a kind of comic masterpiece, his early comic masterpiece. And he then goes on from there. He writes Lucia di Lammermoor, he writes Lucrezia Borgia. By the time he gets to Don Pasquale in 1843, he has written an awful lot of operas in an awful lot of different genres, and for theatres not only all over Italy, where he's been a huge success all over the entire peninsula, but also all over Europe. He is the big international opera composer of the moment.
Okay, so if he is the one writing all this incredible stuff, what was the pressure to write it in 2 weeks?
This wasn't really pressure per se. This is something that Donizetti was immensely proud of. He does write a rather kind of whingy letter, for want of a better word, saying, I've put 10 days' work into this piece.
A whole 10 days?
I was going to say an entire 10 days. There's admittedly another letter in which he says, well, it's only taken me 11 days to earn 19,000 francs. That's not bad, is it?
That'll do.
So he had a particular skill in writing operas incredibly quickly. He was known in Italy as Maestro Orgasmo, which doesn't mean quite what you might imagine.
Careful.
But it was a running joke that this was a man who could write with unprecedented speed. There was actually a cartoon that widely circulated in the French press around the time that he wrote Don Pasquale, where with his right hand, he is writing an opera score. With his left hand, he is also writing an opera score with a different title on the front. So the idea was he was able to write with great speed. he was able to do that because Italian opera was really based in convention at this time. He was also a prolific self-borrower. So if something hadn't quite worked out, in 64 operas, you win some, you lose some. He'd had those big hits that I've already mentioned. He also had some other operas that didn't go down quite so well. He raided himself endlessly, including for this opera. There are bits of this opera that started life elsewhere that he was able to repurpose. But he did work under immense sort of self-pressure, if you like.
Is that where all the good stuff came from?
Yeah, I think so. It's this endless. I mean, he was a complete coffee addict for a start. I mean, you know, caffeine addicts of the world, you have great company in Donizetti. He really was a kind of high-energy composer, and I think you can kind of hear that in the music.
It does have a buzz, doesn't it? Now, look, you said he travelled a lot also. During a rather short lifetime.
Yeah, he died at 51. I mean, one of the kind of questions I would love to know, you know, what would he have written next? If he hadn't died so early, what would have happened? But, yeah.
So what brought his opera to Paris, then? With all his travels, why did he want it to open there?
Well, it's a good question. So Donizetti had actually lived in Paris on and off for several years by the time he came to write this opera. Paris, it's really hard to overstate Paris's importance in opera during the 19th century. At this time in the mid-century, it was the city. So if you were a kind of major Italian opera composer in Italy, the next step for you was to have a work written for Paris. He'd actually already done that. He did that in 1835, you know, 8 years before Don Pasquale, with a piece called Mare in Faliero, which wasn't a great success, actually, if truth be told, because it coincided with the premiere of Bellini's opera I Puritani, which was an enormous success. And this is the thing, even a city such as Paris couldn't support multiple operas at the same time. But Paris was really the world centre for opera in the 19th century. And so, of course, it had all the prestige, it had most of the funding, they were the best funded opera houses out there. It had these 3 different opera houses, one of which specialised in Italian opera, but the others were also places you'd want to have your work performed if you were a really serious composer intent on an international reputation. So there was a brand new director at the Théâtre Italien, the Italian theatre in Paris, in the early 1840s, and of course, he wanted a new piece from Donizetti. Why wouldn't he? Yeah. This man is the composer of the moment. What's more, he had 4 of the most famous singers on earth ready and waiting, and so what better music to launch them with for that season than to get Donizetti to write for them?
So go on then, this star cast, which we've seen our
I was
very
going to
own
say, I feel as
version.
though I'm sitting, there were quite large shoes to fill here. I'm,
it's
you know, where
seat,
Bryn was. It is a great seat.
So who was their star cast at the time?
These were 3 of the 4, the quartet of singers known as the Puritani Quartet. Remember I said that Bellini opera, which was a huge hit in 1835 in Paris. 3 of those singers were booked again for the Théâtre Italien. They were Giulia Grisi, who was one of the star sopranos of her time. Her soon-to-be husband, Mario, who was the one person who hadn't been in I Puritani, he was the tenor. And he was the heartthrob tenor of the moment. He was also a count, remarkably. He was an aristocratic tenor.
Excellent.
And then singing alongside them were Luigi Lablache, who was the most beloved bass of the age. And he was also Queen Victoria's singing teacher, among his many other activities. And finally, the baritone was Antonio Tamburini, who was, for want of a better term, the Barry Hunk of his age. So these really were the singers you would want. Donizetti had experience of the 3 who'd been in the Puritani quartet, of Grisi, Tamburini, and Lablache, and he knew their voices, so he was able to really sculpt these lines to make the most of their vocal talents and dramatic talents as well. So we kind of hear them in the music.
So really, it's no wonder we had all the ingredients adding up to make a perfect premiere.
Absolutely.
And it was a hit, wasn't it?
It was an absolute hit, yes. It was, as you say, it was kind of primed to go down well. The interesting thing here is actually that there were some critical voices. They were, I'm afraid, London's critical voices. There were some music critics in mid-19th century London who loved to dislike Italian opera. And so there was an amazing critic who wrote about the vicious brass and the fact that there were orchestral abominations in this opera. And it's actually really interesting hearing our cast speak about the fact that, yes, this is actually quite a heavily orchestrated piece, that there is quite adventurous use of orchestra for the time. Donizetti was experimenting. He was taking his cue from the fact that Paris had these astonishing musical resources. It had the best rehearsed orchestras in the world. So if you were Donizetti, why wouldn't you write in quite an extravagant way for them? And so he, in that sense, is absolutely preempting the kind of Verdian orchestration orchestration, where again, Verdi was critiqued so often, criticised so often for his noisiness with the orchestra. And that, these days, is what we love.
We do rather love it. Well, look, we'll be talking a little bit more later on.
We will.
Delving a little bit further. But for now, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll
Thank you
speak
very
later.
much.
Thank you. And now to talk about working with our magnificent orchestra and bringing the score to life, please welcome our conductor, Evelino Pido. Lovely to see you. Now, Evelina, you conducted this very production in Paris last year. I hope so. So tell me, what was it like to conduct Don Pasquale in the city where it was first premiered? How did that feel?
I mean, I feel very well because I love music, of course, I love life, I love Donizetti, in this case Don Pasquale, and then I have also a big chance to have to make music here in your wonderful theater.
So from Paris to London, how lovely.
Yes, it's a co-production with the same Damiano Michieletto. We created, we built.
You built.
All together this opera in Paris, and now we renovate a little bit, we change something. Because
so it's all fresh and sparkling.
yes, because we change, you know.
Of course, exactly.
The biorhythms are different every day, you know.
Absolutely.
Then it's important, you know, to give something more interesting. And then we have a chance also to have a very good cast, really very good quality, and then we need, because for this kind of opera, we needed to have, because you know, we talk about bel canto. It means something, no?
Beautiful singing.
Exactly. I mean...
and we have the right people joining us, don't we?
Yeah, yes.
Now, you
but
are...
I'm happy about it.
You're one of our leading interpreters of Italian and French repertoire. So what is it particularly about Donizetti that really sets you alight? Tell me about Donizetti, particularly in the orchestral scoring as well. What do you love about it?
Allora, firstly, he wrote this in 42, and the premiere was at Théâtre des Italiens in Paris, the 43, the debut, January. He wrote, it's true that he wrote this opera in 11 days, but be careful. He wrote, I mean, he was a very good composer, a genius, but generally he wrote the bass line and then all the vocal lines. It means that during the following days, the following weeks, during the preparation of the rehearsals, he put it inside, he wrote about the instrumentation, step by step, day by day. Of course, vocal line was there.
Yes.
Vocal line was there.
That was all set.
Absolutely. And then, you can imagine, he wrote Elixir d'Amore, the other very good masterpiece by Donizetti, 10 years before, in 32. 10 years after, of course, he had more maturity. And then he was really well known after Rossini, as you know, in Paris, because he received some invitations, some command, no? And then also, he was well known also in Vienna, because, for example, the same year of Don Pasquale in 43, he wrote Maria di Rohan, for example, and received a strong impression, a big, huge success. I mean, we can consider Don Pasquale, I consider Don Pasquale a masterpiece, but I think the last drama buffo, because it's a drama buffo. It's not only, we have two côtés. Côté nostalgic, côté larmoyant, et côté comique.
Yeah.
It's a combination.
Yeah.
And then for me it's the last one. Example this kind of opera. Why? Also because in that period, just only few years ago in Paris, we had another incredible composer like Meyerbeer. He created the Grand Opera. The taste of the audience in Europe, also in Italy, of course, the taste of the intendant changed completely. And then the bel canto, step by step. And for me, Don Pasquale is the last one.
Exactly,
I
it's the
think
twilight
that
in a way.
Donizetti wanted to give something to everybody.
Well, tell me, so we have the incredible vocal lines that were written, and underneath this incredible character of the orchestra.
Absolutely.
That's a
The
real dialogue,
instrumentation,
isn't it?
But, just only the overture, sorry.
It
It's
explodes,
beautiful, but
yeah.
believe me, really difficult for the orchestra. It's our visit card, and then it's so tricky because also is my opinion, my conception. Bel canto needs also to have a lot of flexibility. I ask a lot of flexibility in the vocal line, but also in the, for the instrument, because it's a dialogue between the pit and the stage. It's a conversation. Do you understand? To give this, you give a more interest, theatrical and musical interest. It's not easy, because also Damiano, I love a lot his production. We created, of course, and then he asked a lot. He pretended, of course, his vision, and then we are here day by day because it's not easy. Some movement, and then vocally speaking is so difficult.
It's a lot to put together.
And then for the singers, they needed to have more maturity every day, you know. And then, but we are here to work heavily, but with happiness.
Heavily, but with happiness.
Yes.
Now, if we were going to ask our audience to listen out for one particular musical highlight, what is your, do you have a favourite moment in the score? What should we listen for?
We can say, theatrically speaking, we can say that the more dramatic moment is, of course, this slap that Don Pasquale received. For a man of, you can imagine, the 17 years to receive the slap. And then it was a scandal, because in that period, you can imagine,
Of
the theater
course.
to receive a slap on stage.
And it's a shocking moment for everybody.
Yes, it's a theatrical speaking.
Of
I mean,
course.
we have, I can say my favorite. I mean, of course, the concertato, when is the Act 2 è rimasto, l'ha impietrato, the exposition of the baritone, for me is one of the moments, because it's like a tableau vivant. And then it's beautiful music. Donizetti created something of special, but we have so many moments, melodies, magnificent melodies.
Incredible.
Harmonically speaking, also we have a fantastic, precious moments. I repeat also the orchestra, and then, excuse me, I would like to spend one thing.
We have one last thought.
Sorry.
Tell me.
Sorry. About the chorus presence.
The chorus, of course.
Presence.
Yes.
Why? Donizetti invented one thing for me in this opera, because never, neither Rossini, Bellini himself, generally, or opera seria, opera comic, there is always in the Act 1 the introduction of the first scene, chorus, generally.
Generally, but here?
But here no. A chorus arrives on the third act. The third act is small pages. He wrote small pages, but so beautiful, but so difficult.
And it's a tune that everyone...
To sing. But interesting this, no? The present, because we have 4 characters, of course, 4 principals. The 5th character is the notaro.
Notary, of course.
Is a character. And also orchestra is absolutely protagonist, because
Absolutely.
instrumentation is wonderful.
Now,
but also
Evelina,
vocally speaking is so interesting, so important.
I'm going to borrow your thoughts about the chorus later on, and I'm going to speak to Damiano more about the chorus. So,
Absolutely, with great pleasure. Please, Damiano.
So for now, I'm going to say thank you so very much for joining us this evening. It's been a pleasure
you
to
very
speak
much.
with you. Our wonderful
too.
conductor, Evelina Pido. Thank you. Thank you. Now, it is clear that Donizetti's sparkling score is absolutely absolutely packed full of musical highlights. So to talk us through some of them, please welcome our cover conductor, Paul Wynne-Griffiths, and baritone Germán y Alcántara. Welcome.
Hi, I'd just like to talk a little bit about how we've prepared the opera, a little bit about the style, and I'm going to set you some homework. As the guys have said, the singers, this was an interesting time in the bel canto era for writing music, vocal music. And every college around the world, every academy around the world, you'll find young singers learning bel canto, how to sing bel canto style, because it is like medicine. They learn how to use the breath, how to use a word that Evelina uses a lot, which is fraseggio, where the music's going, the phrasing of the music. So it's not static, it's always going somewhere. And people like Bellini, Donizetti, Verdi, these were good guys for voices. They knew how to write a melody, they knew how to use text, they knew how to write an accompaniment to help that text come through. And we'll show you a little bit with Germán a little bit later on. But it's vital that young singers learn bel canto, because even if they go eventually into Brunhilde or 20th and 21st century music, the ability to keep your voice healthy and fresh is vital to have a long career. And bel canto will do that for you. Evelina has prepared this score so meticulously. I have a copy of his full score here, and I can't tell you how many markings are in here. Whenever we do bel canto, it's the librarian's nightmare because they spend weeks writing in the parts. Because when an orchestral gets into the pit to play the music for bel canto, they hardly ever play what they see written down. For kick-off, all dynamics are 2 grades lower. All fortissimi are mezzo forte. All mezzo pianos are pianissimo. This gives it you don't want a heavy sound in this music. In Elise d'Amore, La Fille du Régiment, Don Pasquale, the 3 comic drama operas, they don't need the heaviness of the later Verdi operas, or even some of the early Verdi operas. We even use small bore trombones in the pit for this piece, which hasn't got such a full bass sound to it, but it's more direct and lively, and it gives it a different texture. Evelina has marked up the score very clearly because all notes aren't the same length as written. Sometimes notes are shorter, some notes are longer, depending on the text. So it's put in the orchestral parts, and the singers have to know as well. So there is an ensemble. The ensemble in this piece is Evelina's favourite word, tricky. It's very tricky to get this together because it is so transparent. Just the 4 characters blended together, you hear everything that's going on. There's no hidden sound at all. Little things like, so many decisions have to be made in every bar. Little things like, a bar like 2 bars like this, which you've heard 100 times in bel canto aria. That's what's written in my piano score, what's in the full score. Now, do you play that last note as written? A full crotchet, or do you shorten it? Do you do a crescendo through it, or do you do a diminuendo? And it's all to do with what the text is above it. If the text is a question, you want the music to sort of go up in tension. So you get a feeling the orchestra is telling you what the text is about, and vice versa. As Evelyn just said, it's a dialogue between the stage and the pit. So the orchestra is informing the stage, and vice versa. One other thing about Evelino is he's very loyal to Donizetti. He's studied this score and done critical editions of it so well. He knows the style so well. He knows the traditions. He knows all the recordings. He won't disregard them, but that's not what he works from. He works from what Donizetti wanted. He understands the style, and you're going to learn that now. So you can go. Your homework is you're going to go home and you're going to write a bel canto aria. And I'm going to tell you how to do it. It's three things we need for an aria: a good melody, an accompaniment, and text. So, if we give... this is the melody that Herman is going to sing in a minute for us. Just a simple melody. What is a melody? It's just a progression of notes, logical progression, and the aria will develop into a climax at the end, with usually a little cadenza at the end. But it's just a simple little melody. Now that's a little bit under speed because I did that a little bit just to show how beautiful and legato it is. Herman will sing it much better than I can play it on the piano because the piano is a percussive instrument and Herman isn't percussive. He's a nice chap. But if we go to the beginning of Act 2 and hear beginning of Ernesto's aria, which is a completely different sort of melody. It's in the minor key. He's just been thrown out of his uncle's house. He's lost his girlfriend. He's not in a good place. It's in the minor key, but again, just a simple little melody. Now, that's what I mean by, Evelina means by fraseggio. The whole thing has got one feeling to it. Casta Diva from Norma is the longest melody ever written, probably. It goes on for about 36 bars. And you've got to have that whole feeling of the whole piece. Now, we need to add to that melody. Right, okay, you've gone home, you've written your nice melody now. You've written your nice melody, which you're happy with. You can choose yourself whether it's a happy one or a sad one. Your choice. Just make a nice melody that shows the emotion of what you're wanting to say. The accompaniment for bel canto is very simple. This is the accompaniment for the aria Herman will sing in a minute. Now, I think we could write that already. That's not really very complicated, but it's great because it gives you the pulse. The way I'm playing the speed of those repeated notes gives you a pulse of what the character is feeling. It also does not get in the way of these wonderful melodies. That wonderful melody that I played before, that goes together with that simple accompaniment, and it doesn't get in the way. There's no conflict to make the singer fight or push. That was a bit dry, so as well as those string chords, occasionally, in this case, it uses a clarinet and a horn just to add a few sustaining chords, so it's not quite as dry as it was. So it's a little bit more full, but it's just telling the singer and you what's going on so the singer can interpret what's going on. So if we put that together, can you just sing the first 2 bars of that? I promise you'll sing it all in a minute. Oh, another tradition. Whenever you get a bar like an introduction like this, which happens in Verdi, but all of them, they usually, it's not in the score, but they usually start it with mezzo forte with a little diminuendo. So it really establishes the key, and it doesn't sit. So you get...
Bella siccome un angelo in terra pellegrino.
That's enough. Good. That really shows already putting the melody with a simple accompaniment, and you don't need any more than that. Okay, so you've gone home, you've written your melody, and you've written a simple accompaniment. Are we okay so far? You're not convincing me. All right. Okay, no, that's the next important thing. One of the most important things is choosing text. Now, Donizetti and Verdi knew how to write music, but they knew how to choose text as well. When we get into Verdi and the cavatina part of the aria, it's all to do with melody, all to do with legato line. So you have lots of long vowels, but you have the voiced consonants as well, L, M, N, and R, which you can make sounds on. L, M, N, R. You can't do that on a P. You can't make a sound on a P. Stop it. So they choose text. If you open a Bellini at any page, you find words full of long vowels and voiced consonants. So I left my heart in San Francisco would be a very good Cavatina line because it's got all those ends in San Francisco. That would be a really good. When they get to the cabaletta, that's all to do with rhythm, not melody. So you could do a rap number for the cabaletta that would fit for a cabaletta. But they have words like addio, ammazzarmi, vendetta, really percussive words which show the rhythm of the music rather than the beautiful melody of the words. So, although I'm going to ask Herman to do one thing in a minute, I'm going to ask him to do it badly twice and then well once. Because we've got these beautiful vowels, which of course are what we want to hear. We want to hear singers sing nice, beautiful vowels. They're like the glass in a stained glass window, the beautiful colours. They're what you see and really stare at with beauty, but they don't mean anything without the leaded round it. And the leaded bit round the coloured glass are the consonants. And they're just as important and really, really vivid and as important, but they don't seem as beautiful, even though they are. So I'm going to ask, what one do you want to do? Let's do Verdi. Let's jump on 24 years to Don Carlo. Rodrigo's aria, exactly the same format. I've got this accompaniment. Just simple. Again, on this occasion, it's not the clarinet and horn, it's the viola that's doing the harmony. But again, it's just a simple accompaniment with the tune on top. Okay, the harmony's a little bit more chromatic, a little bit more complicated. We're in Verdi land now, but it's exactly the same. Now, is this the one you wanted to do badly?
Okay.
Okay. Now, I want him to sing it just emphasizing the long vowels. And you get some young singers who think that vowels are the important thing, so they just sing with vowels, and you don't get any consonants at all. Okay, and then you get someone coming, that's no good, we can't hear your text. Can you really spit the text out, please? I want to hear the text. So you get this sort of version as well. Okay, now you understood every word of that, but I don't think you wanted to hear much of it. So now he's going to do it nicely.
Per me giunto il dì supremo, non mai più ci rivedrem, ci congiunga Dio il cielo.
Beautiful, Hamlyn. Very good. Now I'll ask Herman to sing the Malatesta aria, but I would like to say you would not have got Rodrigo's aria if you'd not had Donizetti and Bellini. It was a stage that started it all off, made this style, and Verdi carried it on into something special. But the music of Donizetti was vital, and the music of the bel canto area was vital to what came after it. Okay, just this little section from the Malatesta where he's selling his sister to Don Pasquale in marriage. And we're having words like bella si come un angelo. Just say angelo for me. See how that's nice to sing. The N helps you. The words, the piece is littered with it. Sorriso incantator, enchanting smile. Sorriso incantator. Say that one. You can use that one in your melody tonight, okay? That's a good one. Okay, but it's littered with this. And of course, at the end there's a little cadenza, which is where Herman shows off what he can do with the voice. But it's got to be part of what he's singing about as well. It's not just Olympic game time and I can jump higher than you can. That's what the composers understood. They understood the tessitura of the voice. They know tenors can sing top Cs. They don't give them top Cs to sing all the time. The top C comes out 2 or 3 times in an opera at the end of a big build-up at the crescendo. So this is just a little bit from Malatesta from Don Pasquale.
Bella siccome un angelo in terra pellegrino, fresca siccome il giglio che s'apre sul mattino, occhio che parla e ride, sguardo che il cuore conquide. Il ciel l'ha fatta nascere per far beato un cor, beato un cor. Il ciel l'ha fatta nascere per far beato un cor, per far beato un cor. Il ciel l'ha fatta nascere per far beato, beato. Per fare beato, beato un cor.
Thank you to Paul Wynne-Griffith and to Herman E. Alcantara. Thank you very much. And now it's welcome back to Dr. Flora Wilson, who's going to talk more about how the opera was received by the audiences in the 1840s. Welcome back, Flora. So let's go straight in. How did the audience receive it? We know it was a hit.
They loved it. I mean, so it was a huge hit in Paris. The interesting thing is what happens next, where it travels abroad more or less immediately. So it's premiered in Vienna with, in fact, the soprano who was on the cards to be Verdi's first Lady Macbeth, which is a really interesting moment in the kind of the history of opera here, that we've got all these periods crashing together, if you like. It went to London, of course. It came here and it got critiqued by people who didn't like the noisiness of the orchestration. And of course, it went back to Italy. It was a huge hit at La Scala in Milan. So it went internationally. It's also, more to the point, very, very quickly crossed the Atlantic, because Italian opera by this time in the mid-19th century was a truly international phenomenon. And so the first performance of Don Pasquale in the US was in New Orleans, of all places, which had a really influential opera house at that time. And it was only a couple of years after its first performance in Paris. So opera was moving incredibly quickly around the globe at this time, even though, you know, steam packets were still how you crossed the Atlantic and it would take weeks. Opera was something that was moving in those directions.
So it was travelling and visiting all these key places and spaces. What kind of opera is it?
Well, that's the good question, really, because what's interesting is that Rossini is still alive and well, but he's stopped writing opera. He's living in Paris. He's living his best life, in fact, in Paris. He's enjoying everything that Paris has to offer and has decided he's written enough operas by now. So that's him. Verdi, meanwhile, has begun writing operas. His operatic debut was in 1839 in Milan. Unfortunately, his second opera in 1840 was a huge failure, and that was a comedy called Un giorno di regno. Now, that's significant because Donizetti, who, as I've already said, was really at the peak of his powers as a composer in 1843 when this was premiered, he's written a mix of very comic operas, L'Élysée d'Amore, opera buffa in a very straightforward way. He's written an opéra comique for Paris, La Fille du Régiment. He's written serious operas. He's got serious operas, in fact, coming out of his ears, and they are the influential, they are the fashionable operas at this point. Comedy is really beginning to go out of fashion. And so it's a very strange decision in some ways that he makes in the early 1840s to write one more comedy. And it's in that sense that Don Pasquale really is, I think, the last in this great tradition of the opera buffa, the Italian comic tradition. It's heard as the heir to the legacy of Barbiere di Siviglia, of the Barber of Seville by Rossini, which is arguably the first popular music in the world, in fact. Such was the popularity of that opera that it went global. It went platinum, if you like. It was heard everywhere. It was sung by people on street corners. It was played by barrel organs. It was arranged for bands. It went everywhere. Don Pasquale is the next, but also the last monument, if you like, in this sequence of extraordinarily popular works. And what's interesting about what Donizetti does with it is it becomes a sentimental genre as well. Because I know it's interesting hearing our cast talk about, obviously this is a comedy, and yes, and I look forward to seeing it on stage, and I imagine it will be very funny indeed. But there's also something that's not terribly funny about this.
There's
a darkness, exactly. As one of the original reviewers said back in the 1840s, it's a peculiarly sad farce. There's something really quite poignant about the way that this old, aging, at least, man is tricked, essentially, and is taught a lesson. And his ego is indeed thoroughly deflated, and it's actually quite tough to watch in some ways if you take it seriously at all.
And Evelina talked about the slap, the moment of this. It's painful, and the music that follows after that.
Exactly.
That seems to take us into a very different territory, and we pause for a moment.
Yes.
And I feel terribly sorry for him.
Exactly, and I think what's really skillful about how Donizetti has put this piece together is that we hear all these different kinds of music in this opera. He's really building on the fact that he knows how to hold a crowd in numerous different kinds of styles. And he's actually mixing them together. In Don Pasquale, he creates a hybrid, essentially, so that while Don Pasquale, in a funny sort of way, he is a comic character in a very straightforward way. And Norina, if you listen to her, you know she's wily. You can hear just how wily she is because she has these gorgeous lyric lines, but hear how she uses ornamentation. She has these men twisted round her little finger. Just listen to the way she decorates. But equally, we've just heard Malatesta, and he's a smooth operator. The suavity of those lines, it's extraordinary.
There is an oil there, yes?
Absolutely, it's all very, very slick. It absolutely works on us. But then there's Ernesto, and he sings in this such a sincere way.
He said earlier he's the victim.
He is.
Bless him.
He's a sad boy, really. I mean, he's sweet. He's everyone's idea of the sweet boy next door. You know, he's gorgeous, but he sings such sort of earnest music, such earnest tenor music.
It's all in the name, isn't it?
It is really, yes.
Laura, it has been a pleasure to speak with you.
Thank you
so
me.
much for joining us again.
It's
been lovely. Thank you. Now, it is fantastic to have people watching all around the world with us tonight. You are all so welcome. Thank you for joining us. Now, don't forget, you can watch Don Pasquale in cinemas across the world on the 24th of October. But next this evening, we're taking a closer look at our wonderful new production with director Damiano Michieletto and costume designer Agostino Cavalca. Damiano and Agostino, welcome. Hello. Hi, Agostino. Thank you so much for joining us. and welcome to your friends as well. So when creating, good grief, so when creating a new production, how many elements do you have to consider? What is the alchemy that creates your design world? How does it start? Damiano?
Well, I think there are two elements, the words and the music.
That's a great place to start.
That's the only thing that you have to consider. And for example, I think it's not useful to consider the notes that are in the libretto, the words that are in brackets.
The stage directions?
The stage direction, yes. Because somehow it's much better if you just take the words and you try to understand and to invent a world that have to fit with these words and with this music. So these two elements are the Bible that you have to take.
Well, that's a perfect place to draw it all from, of course, the score and the text. So, with that in mind, where did you decide to set your Don Pasquale, and what did you want us to see as the curtain rises?
Well, honestly, I would say that it's set where it should be set, which is the house of Don Pasquale. So it's nothing about putting an idea or putting a concept upon the story. It's just the story is set in the house of Don Pasquale. I think what it will be interesting is to understand how you set the story in the house, how you treat the stage, the aesthetic that you use, and the interaction between the actors, which I would prefer to call them actors in this case, and the stage. So it's not about being original, it's about being creative with what the story offers to you.
Exactly, and look, as the curtain rises, we see something very familiar. It feels like almost like a sitcom setup. We see familiar space. We see a space with doors, with furniture. We understand very clearly that we are looking at a house. Agostina, also, we understand, we see costumes that seem familiar to us as well, and I can't ignore your friends.
Yeah,
what's going on here?
this is Don Pasquale. I say hello. Yeah, just to follow what Damiano said, what you said in the right way, just to put this situation as real people on stage, like us, you know, really authentical. You know, especially also, Bryn said the right things, you know, to don't make any comics, you know, there is no caricature. There are people like us, you know, in a situation like if we are in the real life. And that is the things to say about, I won't say costume anymore, it's just character.
Yes.
And insisting the fact that costume, it's not really what we have to design, it's just the skin of each actor.
So it's the extra layer of
it's
character.
absolutely the real skin, you know, the real...
So, from where you created this in Paris, now bringing it over to London, you have a new cast, it's a different house. Have you decided to make any changes? Do things work differently on the cast members? How's it grown?
Well, I would say I did many changes. Of course, when it's a co-production and the set is done, the money has been spent, let's say, no? So you cannot change everything also because it makes no sense. It means that you have no clear idea of the direction that you have to follow. But improvements are always possible, and since I'm never happy with what I've done, if I have a possibility to work again, of course, I will make improvements on the staging, on the aesthetics. Also, I have to thank the Royal Opera House because they give me the opportunity to have a little bit of a budget that I can spend to improve the set. So I think we made big improvements aesthetically, and of course, knowing what I have done, knowing the limits of what I have done, I have a possibility to make a step forward, to develop the characters, to go deeper in the relation, to be more precise in the characterization of the psychology aspects of the characters, to be more focused and to, everything to become more crispy. So I think we are doing, tomorrow will be the first day on stage, we are doing a lot of work on that, and especially because I have a new cast, and in this case I have 4 great personalities, It's a pleasure for me not to be the director who impose or just who treat the people like puppet, but treat the people like human being, knowing that it's not me that I have to be on stage. They have to be on stage. They have to be happy and responsible, and also they have to be in the best condition to deliver the best performance, which is not meaning that I have to make the life easy for them. I have to make the life, as Bryn says, is chaos for him in his mind,
Glorious
which is
chaos.
good, because you have to arrive to a moment which is like, I am full, okay, and then you arrive and you deliver. But if you don't arrive on a moment of where you feel pushed a little bit on your limits, then it becomes too comfortable.
Exactly.
And then
That's when you
it's
lose.
too much comfortable also for the audience. And I think the audience want not to feel comfortable. They want to feel excited.
Exactly.
And that's huge work.
So, tell me about how the set and the costumes feed the environment of the space. I mean, the change from Act 2 to Act 3, for example, that once she's got her key in the door, basically, the changeover from the house as he had it to what she turns it, it's quite a dramatic and exciting surprise in Act 3. How does the world work with the set?
Yeah, it's a surprise, so I don't want to say precisely what happened, otherwise I
Give that
destroy
away.
the surprise. But from a storytelling point of view, the arrival of this new wife in the life of this old man changed completely. And the beginning of Act 3, which is, as Evelino said, the beginning of the chorus, the first moment we see the chorus come, and they are telling us about how chaotic is the house because she's actually buying new stuff, new furniture, changing. So what I created, I took the chorus and I said the chorus are like movers, no, Pickford.
Yeah, movers.
Move.
Yeah, rentals, change
Yes.
everything.
And so the chorus number, it takes 90 seconds. So the first chorus numbers, it's 1 minute 30 seconds, so 90 seconds. In 90 seconds, they completely change the set on view. So, and they come and what was the old house of Don Pasquale become a brand new house, very expensive, and he found himself that he had to pay for that, of course, which he hates. So it's really all the set change, the color of the set change, the furniture change, and meaning that a new start happens in the life of Don Pasquale.
Exactly. Now, Agostino, the change from the old to the new, we have a perfect example of the old to the new behind me over here. So tell me what we're looking at these two.
Yeah, it's funny that they are there the first time I see them like this. Because for me, just tonight, say like, like loneliness, sadness.
It does feel
and,
rather lonely,
glamour,
this, doesn't it?
No money, lots of money. She makes spend lots of money for
And
that.
the choice of red as well, very, very bold with the...
Yeah, I think the red comes like this, how can I say that, like this passion,
Passion, power.
Passion, power, but passion, and...
Sexy.
Very. Especially all my singer, they are really sexy beast in me.
Marvelous. And it doesn't look like a natural match, does it, in terms of this is a Pasquale world.
Yeah, I think this is a really psychological, already consciously what's going on. No? This is the bourgeoisie, la solitude, and this is la glamour, the life, And there are two elements that really match very well.
Yes, the
together.
distance between the two
absolutely,
costumes speaks miles, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So tell me, we have different elements in this piece, puppets being one of them. So what is the interest with the puppets? How do they feature in this piece?
Well, the second number of the chorus is another moment where chorus arrive and they are, again, telling us about the noises that were happening in the house, the fighting, the shouting, because this conflict between Don Pasquale and Norina. And reading the text of this scene with the chorus, they are telling about these three characters, Norina, Ernesto, and Don Pasquale. And so I imagine that now they are like the neighbor of the house of Don Pasquale, coming and telling. And what they say about the three characters will be told with three puppets that are the three characters. And so while they are telling us about the conflict between Don Pasquale and Norina, we actually see the puppet of Don Pasquale and the puppet of Norina having the conflict. And they will tell us what has happened in the first act. So the puppet somehow repeats something that you have already seen on stage in the first act, but told with the puppets. So I just add this element, which is funny and which creates a moment of surreal, so a kind of a visionary moment. Also because the chorus in this opera is like, you could easily take it away. I mean, it's not really part of a development of the story. It's just a number. So I said, let's have a number which we open the door into a kind of very surreal moment, then we close the door and we go on with the story. And so these three puppets will come twice in the story to have this
extra element.
Yeah, extra element and fresh.
Because you have this wonderful natural world, and there's another extra element that makes us think in a different form, and that's the video element. There are some incredible costumes going on in that as well. What's the extra element with the video? How did you decide to put that in?
Well, the video element, the video is very tricky in opera because sometimes it's used like basically saying, when you have no idea, just put the video. So it's very, it's very, you have to be very careful with video, which is what we try to do, to be, not to. So the Norina, I imagine her like at the beginning, she's working in a studio, fashion studio, where there are models and videos and photographs taken to these people, and she's very poor. She work for few money, and she expressed her desire to become richer, to become more, to have opportunity in her life. And the first thing is that she has a conflict in this studio where she's working with the owner of the studio, and then when she's left alone, she can express all her joyful, and actually she will change her costume and she would like to be the model. She would like to be the one who, and by doing that, she's singing about how smart she is, how ready to take risks she is, how also very dangerous somehow she could be. And so Malatesta, which is the name says, it's like Malatesta, it's a nickname because it should be not his real name, no, but it means that he's a little bit dangerous as well, uses the video to create a trick, which you will see on stage. And this trick will be used later to deceive Don Pasquale. So the video is a kind of a reference of what you think it's real, but it's not real.
So another kind of puppeteering in a way.
Yeah,
isn't it?
which is also one of the main themes of the story. Don Pasquale believes that the woman that he is marrying is Sophronia Malatesta, the sister of Malatesta, which is in reality she is Norina. So there is like a reality that he takes for granted, but which is not. So it's like what you think is reality, it's fake. So this symbol, this theme about reality and what is behind, like you have a mask, no? It's about the story, and we try to deliver that also with the video in 3 moments during the show.
Fantastic. And Agostino, give me in one sentence, as I asked the cast earlier, what does this piece mean to you? How have you enjoyed making it?
Ooh la la. What it means for me?
Yeah.
Well, in one word, I don't know that there is just one word to say.
You can choose 3, you can choose 5.
For me, it's just, you know, I don't know, it's each time actually it's true, because each time I read with Damiano, you know, this piece, you know, that bring us to reality again, you know, for this kind of situation that also Bryn spoke before, you know. For me, just to be enjoying your life.
Enjoy your love.
Life.
Enjoy your life.
Life.
Absolutely.
Voilà. Enjoy your life.
Enjoy your life and the people that come in and out.
Don't
of
stay
it.
at home alone with this, you know, dressing
So keep
gown.
the dressing gown,
go
put on
out,
the dress.
and then enjoy your life. Voilà.
Fantastic.
Come to see the show.
Well, it has been really joyous speaking to both of you. I'm so looking forward to seeing this on our stage here. It is a production with so many layers, so many exciting parts to look at, and it is beautifully choreographed, funny and nostalgic, and everything I hoped a Don Pasquale would be. It has been wonderful to have you both with us tonight. So thank you so much to Damiano and to Agostino. So, ladies and gentlemen, very sadly, that is all we have time for. Please join me in thanking all of our guests who have been with us tonight. It has been wonderful to have them to share all their thoughts about this fantastic production. And our huge thanks also go to Rolex for supporting tonight's Insight. Now, Don Pasquale will be in a cinema near you on the 24th of October and live on the stage at the Royal Opera House from the 14th of October. So please don't miss out on this fun and come and join us. Finally, to our audience here in the Claw studio, thank you very much for joining us, and to all of you who've been watching World Live with us on YouTube. Thank you for joining us, and good night.